A struggling single father, David, and his 6-year-old daughter, Emma, a multilingual prodigy, catch a catastrophic mistranslation in a $30 million deal for CEO Rebecca Chen. Emma's nuanced cultural reading impresses leadership, leading to life-changing offers and a showcase at a Tokyo summit. Despite media skepticism, Emma gives a moving keynote that reframes global business as human understanding. Their lives stabilize, and Emma continues helping companies communicate while still being a kid. The notice on the door wasn't paper so much as a tone. It hummed under David's skin as he pulled it free, the adhesive giving up with a whisper he tried to pretend Emma couldn't hear. "What's it say?" she asked, eyes big and green and trying to read his face more than the block letters. "It says," he tried, "we should label the toaster in Portuguese." She grinned, already reaching for the pack of sticky notes. Their kitchen glowed with them. Gelato pink squares saying forno. Lemon yellow for sink, Pia. The refrigerator had a gallery of vocabulary and one lonely half-loaf, the kind that turns to toast crumbs if you breathe on it wrong. His laptop chimed. The screen was a spiderweb of cracks from last month's sprint to a bus that didn't wait. Emergency translation needed. Mandarin to English. Must be perfect. $500 today if available. Signed by a name he'd never expected to see in his inbox, Rebecca Chen. He called before he could chicken out. His voice sounded like it had slept on a park bench. Hers sounded like it hadn't slept at all. "My translator's in surgery," she said. "We sign at 9 tomorrow. It has to be right." "Send it," he said, which was brave for someone already sweating. The document landed like a brick. Merged companies, projections, clauses that braided themselves into knots, footnotes that turned into trapdoors. His cursor blinked at a sentence he could not bear to get wrong, the way you can't put weight on a step you don't trust. Emma's pencil scratched out character after character, her small hand sure. She had turned the second-hand table into a school, French lullaby humming, Portuguese numbers under her breath, Mandarin strokes precise as sewing. "Want to help with a puzzle?" he asked lightly, because if he called it work, he would cry. She scooted over, knees tucked, breath fogging the cracked part of the screen. "This part," she said, tapping gently. "People say it's exclusive, but they don't mean exclusive like only you. They mean it like a wall around everybody else." "Monopoly," he whispered. She shrugged like she was picking a crayon. "Also, they keep apologizing too much in these lines. That's a sign they think somebody will be upset later." He felt the ground tilt. He'd been wrestling that sentence for 20 minutes. He'd looked up 3 dictionaries and a forum where men with avatars corrected each other into oblivion. Emma had listened to the rhythm and found the spine. He dialed again. "Miss Chin," he said, "I think there's a clause that means control of the whole market, not exclusivity. And there are payment lines that say 3 different things depending on who needs them to." There was silence. He imagined a conference room at midnight, glass walls, and no way out. "Stay on," Rebecca said. "I'm adding legal." Voices joined, crisp, caffeinated, suspicious. Emma leaned into him, soft weight, warm shoulder. She whispered, "Ask them to read section 14 like it's a promise, not a plan." He repeated it. Something shifted on the other end, the way a lock sounds when it decides to be kind. When the call ended, David's hands shook too much to hang up properly. "Dad?" Emma asked, more curious than scared. "Did I do it wrong?" "No," he said, pressing his forehead to her hair that still smelled like cheap apple shampoo. "You did it exactly right." His phone buzzed again. "Come in tomorrow," the message read. "Bring Emma." The notice on the door sat on the counter, face down, the glue tacky, waiting to be a problem again. David slid it under the laptop, like you might slide a note under a bedroom door when you're not ready to talk about it. "Can I label the stars next?" Emma asked, looking at the dark window. He smiled. "Only if you teach me how to say them." "Estrellas," she said, and stuck a pink square to the glass that showed them no stars at all. The Prudential lobby had a smell that said you don't belong. Polished stone, coffee that cost a decision, shoes that never walked on sidewalks. David's jacket pulled funny at one shoulder. Emma's dress was a little big and a lot determined. On the elevator, a woman asked, "How old?" The way people ask, how long is the wait? 6, Emma said, and then in Mandarin, but I'm trying 7 on. The woman stared a second too long. The doors opened on a floor that pretended clouds were furniture. Rebecca Chen's office was glass and angles, the kind of space where decisions echo. She ended a call in Mandarin that ran fast and precise, each syllable a tile clicking into place. Emma listened like music, head tilted, then told David softly in Spanish. They agreed to the schedule, but not the standard. They just don't want to lose face. Rebecca turned, composure sliding into something human when she saw Emma. You must be the person who saved me a month of litigation, she said, dropping to the child's height without condescension. Emma responded in Mandarin with a phrase that made Rebecca laugh, a business idiom about catching worms that Emma translated, first mover advantage, with the same casualness other kids reserve for naming a favorite color. An assistant appeared with a phone and a problem. Beijing sent the call, he said. Do you want to try? Rebecca asked Emma like she was offering a piano bench. Emma looked at David. He nodded with the smallest tilt of his chin. The recording was formal Mandarin threaded with shame. Emma's hands folded neatly as she listened. When she finished, she didn't look triumphant. She looked kind. He's worried your factory will rush and something will break. He can't say no to a deadline. So he's saying it sideways. Rebecca closed her eyes as if someone had opened a window. 3 weeks, she murmured. We've been arguing schedule. Ask him what he would be proud to sign his name to, Emma said. He'll tell you the real date. David had the feeling you get watching someone you love do a thing you didn't know they could do and suddenly realizing it's the thing they were made for. He also had the feeling of a father counting visible edges on a world that could cut. A conference table swallowed them. Legal slid in, PR hovered, strategy took notes like stenographers at a trial. Rebecca steepled her fingers. Mr. Martinez, I need you. Senior liaison. Good salary. Apartment. Stability. And for Emma, something careful. 10 hours a week, maximum, always with you, play first, school protected. We'll pay child development professionals to say, stop, before you have to. A man in a navy suit who introduced himself as chief counsel cleared his throat. With respect, the optics of a child, he began. The optics, Rebecca said, are already on fire. She turned to Emma. Do you know what optics means? Emma thought about it. How people see the picture, even if the picture isn't the whole story. Exactly, Rebecca said. I want the picture to show what's true, that you hear what others miss. But only if you want to. Emma looked at the skyline, the way seagulls drew punctuation over the harbor. Can I still go to the library with Mrs. Wong? You must, Rebecca said. That's your lab. The counsel's mouth softened. We'll need boundaries in writing. No press without consent. No meetings after dinner. No being the adult in the room. David found his voice. She won't be, he said. She'll be my kid who sometimes reminds adults to listen. Rebecca slid a folder toward him. Take it home. Tell me no, and I'll still be grateful. Tell me yes, and we build this properly. Emma traced the edge of the folder, then the grain of the table, then her own palm lines as if they formed a map. If we're helping people understand each other, she said carefully, we have to make sure we don't forget that we are people, too. Rebecca smiled, something like relief in it. Deal, she said. On one condition. Tomorrow, choose how we say hello to Tokyo. Emma's smile returned. Konnichiwa, she said, and bowed to the room. The headline found them before breakfast. World's youngest keynote? Vision or vanity? Someone had leaked, and the internet did the thing it always does when it smells a story. David muted the TV, but the crawl still went. Prodigy, spectacle, ethics, exploitation, source says. Emma watched his face more than the screen. Are we in trouble? She asked, and there it was, the first wobble in her voice since all this began. He reached behind the toaster for the words that would help and found none that could out a world. Then the door buzzed. Mrs. Wong stepped in, neat dress, hair pinned like always, carrying a small box the color of patience. For courage, she said in careful English, handing it to Emma. Inside lay a folded paper crane, its wings patterned with brushstrokes of black ink. My husband made these, she said. He said every fold teaches you to hold gentleness and strength at the same time. Emma cupped it. Sia, she whispered. On TV, many people talk. Mrs. Wong went on, switching to Mandarin and then to English again for David. They do not see how she listens. She touched Emma's temple lightly. Listen here. Not here. She tapped the phone on the counter. Rebecca arrived 10 minutes later, wind in her steps, apology in her eyes. The summit announced early, she said. We've contained most of it. But there will be noise. Emma set the crane on the table like a judge setting down a gavel. What does contained mean? It means the people who like to shout into microphones will still shout, Rebecca said. But the people who make things will wait to see what you do. Then we should show them what we do, Emma said, simpler than any spin. David cleared his throat. Boundaries, he said, lifting the folder. In writing. Rebecca nodded. Done. No press without permission. All work hours scheduled around school and play. A no list, no nights, no travel without parent, no decisions your age shouldn't carry. Chief counsel, invited to the kitchen table like any other human, added, and a safeguard, a child psychologist with authority to cancel meetings if this is too much. David exhaled. Then we try, he said, until it isn't right. Tokyo is in 3 weeks, Rebecca said. They want a hello today. A small video call. A simple greeting. Emma pulled a notebook closer, flipped to a page where she had written hiragana in careful rows. We start polite. We watch their eyes. We ask a question only a person would know how to answer. What question? Rebecca asked. Emma thought, then smiled. Not, can we do business, but what would make you proud to tell your grandchildren we made together? Rebecca pressed a hand to the bridge of her nose in that way adults do when something lands where it should. You're going to break a lot of habits, she said, half warning, half blessing. The call lit the laptop. Mr. Tanaka's face filled the screen, lined not with fatigue, but with experience. Emma bowed from her chair, precise. When she spoke, her Japanese was careful, each syllable handled like porcelain, nothing showy, everything sincere. She asked the question about grandchildren. There was a pause that felt like a held breath and then a smile that wasn't for cameras. The translator leaned in, then leaned back, unnecessary. You listen like an old friend, Mr. Tanaka said in English. We should all practice. The internet continued to argue in rooms they were not in. In the kitchen, David made eggs wrong because his hands shook too much and Emma ate them like they were feast food. Can we go to the library? She asked afterward. I need a book about bridges. Bridges? Rebecca asked. Emma picked up the crane. If you fold enough paper, you learn patience. If you build enough bridges, you learn weight. You want a metaphor? David translated, smiling despite himself. I want to be ready, Emma said. Metaphors are how grown-ups remember things. The days stacked like neat blocks. Mornings were school and sticky hands and playground gravel, afternoons a quiet room at Chin Industries fitted with child-sized furniture and a window that made the harbor look like brushed steel. Emma's calendar held color codes, blue for reading, green for listening sessions, yellow for play. A therapist named Sana brought games where feelings wore costumes. We practice saying no to grown-ups, Sana told Emma. You won't hurt our feelings. Emma practiced. No thank you, that's too much for today. Her voice sounded like a small bell. She rang it twice, then laughed and rang it louder. Rebecca became less CEO in a magazine and more tired, kind person who drinks tea too late and remembers people's names. She let Emma sit at the edge of meetings like someone's kid in a church pew, learning when to whisper and when to sing. On a Thursday, Munich called about Vietnam. Emma listened until the cadence told her that later meant never unless you ask me the right way. She wrote, in clumsy block letters, ask, what is promise you can keep this month, and slid it to David, who asked exactly that. The room exhaled when the answer came back firm and small and true. On a Friday, PR arrived with a packet of phrases meant to make cameras happy. Emma flipped through, frowning, then looked at Sana, who nodded at the bell. No thank you, Emma said gently. Can I write my own? PR opened her mouth, then closed it, then handed over a pen like a flag of truce. At night, They cooked rice sticky enough to be forgiven and practiced bows. Mrs. Wong taught Emma how to pour tea with 2 hands. Respect has hands, she said. It carries things carefully. David waited for guilt to sneak up on him, for the feeling that he'd put his child between gears that grind. It didn't come as often as he feared. When it did, it was at bus stops and during dentist forums and quiet moments when Emma fell asleep mid-book, paper crane under her palm. The day before Tokyo, the news ran another segment. A talking head worried about boundaries. Another invoked child actors. A third said genius, like it was a diagnosis. David reached for the remote. Emma put her hand over his. I know why you're scared, she said. Because once, when Mom left, the house felt like a hallway with no doors. And you think this could be another door that disappears? He swallowed. I think, he said, that I will kick the hinges off any door that tries to close on you. That's a lot of kicking, she said seriously. You need good shoes. They packed small. A navy blazer that made Emma look like she was playing dress-up and winning. The paper crane went in the outer pocket. The library book about bridges, with a chapter folded down, suspension, load, tolerance. At Logan, Rebecca met them at the gate. Tokyo doubled their registration, she said. Half for you, half for the controversy. Emma nodded. That's okay, she said. Curious people and mad people both listen hard. On the plane, Emma revised her speech in pencil, crossing out everything that felt like it belonged to the PR packet and leaving only what fit in her mouth without splinters. Stories, she told David. Not rules. Adults remember stories. He looked at her handwriting. Letters tall and careful, spaces wide enough to breathe. It struck him then that the climax of this story wasn't applause. It was the moment a child set her own limits and a room full of adults agreed to honor them. He closed his eyes and slept for the first time in weeks. The hall in Tokyo was an ocean of suits and translation headsets and light that made everyone look a little unreal. Backstage smelled like cables and coffee. Emma stood between David and Rebecca, small hand in his, paper crane in hers. Do you want me to introduce you? Rebecca asked. Emma shook her head. Please say my name and that I'm here to tell a few stories, she said. Not a lesson. Just stories. The announcer's voice rolled out. Applause rose, anticipatory and unsure. Emma walked to the podium in shoes that squeaked once, adorably, then learned. Good morning, she said, first in Japanese, then English. My name is Emma. I'm 6. I listen for a living. A ripple of laughter. Not unkind. She set the crane on the lectern, wings open toward the room. Once, my neighbor Mrs. Wong told me that when she first came to America, people thought her slow English meant slow thinking. But in her house, careful words are respect. She said the hurt wasn't from not being understood. It was from not being seen. She let the translator carry it into other ears. Faces softened by degrees. Another time, a man in a meeting said later 5 times and meant 5 different things. I only knew because of how his voice went down like a step he didn't want to take. We didn't fix the schedule. We fixed the fear. She stepped away from the podium because stories shouldn't be told to wood. My dad says contracts are promises that learn to read. But before that, they are feelings that learn to sit still. A murmur. Heads tilted. Pens paused. When people ask me how to translate a culture, I don't. I ask questions that make the other person bring their own bridge. What would make you proud to put your name on? What are you afraid to say out loud? How do you show respect at home? Sometimes the answer is a bow. Sometimes it's a plan. Sometimes it's a silence. She lifted the crane. My friend gave me this. In Japan, people fold 1,000 cranes for wishes. I only have one. My wish is not for deals to close. It is for people to understand each other enough that when a deal closes, nobody feels tricked. She took a breath. It was steady. Grown-ups ask if I'm too young. Maybe I am too young to know everything about money. But I'm not too young to see when someone's face says, please don't rush me, while their words say, of course. And I'm not too young to believe that respect is a language we should all be fluent in. She looked for Mr. Tanaka. Found him. Before we talk about numbers, can we agree to talk like people who will have to see each other again? Not just on screens. At birthdays. At funerals. At the places we eat when we're not impressing anyone. Silence held, then broke like ice into water. The first hands to come together were not the easiest to win. Two men in the front row whose suits seemed stitched with skepticism. Then others. Then many. The sound climbed and kept climbing. Someone stood. Others followed. It was not a roar. It was a depth charge. Backstage, David closed his eyes against tears that made the lights wobble. Rebecca's hand found his shoulder, solid, human. She didn't pitch, Rebecca said, voice low. She invited. On stage, Emma bowed again, carefully, like pouring tea. 3 months later, Chin Industries' new floor for international communications had a corner that looked like a classroom because it was. Crayon drawings of bridges bracketed a bulletin board of flags. A sign in a child's hand read, Listening Lab. Emma's schedule still had colors, but the yellow squares had grown. Playdates. Park days. Piano lessons she mostly used to learn how sounds live together. Chords or meetings, she told Sana. Notes that decide to be friends. David found that worry didn't leave. It learned manners. It came in the quiet, checked whether boundaries still held, and, finding them sturdy, went to lie down elsewhere. He started running again, feet steady on Boston sidewalks that used to feel like a verdict. He cooked better eggs. Mrs. Wong's grocery added a little shelf of international snacks with handwritten cards explaining what each one meant at home. Emma's notes, the sign said. Tourists took photos. Regulars read and bought and asked questions that sounded like kindness. A pattern emerged in the work. Companies called when bridges sagged. Emma sat with David, listened, then gave the room questions instead of orders. Sometimes she said, no thank you, I'm too tired today, and the room rearranged itself without resentment. Once, she walked into a meeting and walked right back out because someone laughed at her bow. Respect is not a prop, she told Rebecca, who canceled the contract and sent a note that taught more than it scolded. The offers kept coming in envelopes that smelled like ambition. Universities wanted to measure. Television wanted to glow. The UN wanted to put a little chair on a big stage. David and Emma said yes softly to a few, no firmly to most. They said yes to a Saturday workshop at the library where kids drew maps of how their families say hello. They said yes to a video for schools about how to ask better questions. They said no to a reality show. At night, they returned to small things. Soup that tasted like patience. A plant on the windowsill that leaned into the sun the way people lean into approval. The paper crane on Emma's desk, its folds softening at the edges from being touched. One evening, a message from Tokyo arrived. A photo, a conference room with a banner that read Building Trust First. Under it, a small pile of cranes. Mr. Tanaka wrote, we changed our agendas. We put respect at the top. Deals are slower. Fewer mistakes. More dinners. Emma smiled at the photo, then placed it under the magnet shaped like a mango because it made her laugh. Mangoes are the right shape for success, she explained to no one in particular. David tucked her into bed, ocean blinking beyond the glass. Do you remember the notice on the door? He asked. Emma thought. The one that said we should label the toaster? That's the one, he said, and they both smiled. Dad, when I'm older, I want to teach big people and little people together. Maybe a school where you learn math and also how to say, I'm sorry in 12 languages. That's a school I'd fail and try again, he said. She closed her eyes, voice drifting. Sometimes, when two people argue, it sounds like two radios playing different songs. But if you listen, there's a rhythm underneath. You can clap to it. He sat a while after she slept, the cities hum a soft metronome. He thought of all the rooms where people perform competence like armor, and all the rooms where they put it down. He thought of paper cranes and bridges, and how much weight trust can carry if you build it right. His phone buzzed. A message from Rebecca. Pilot program launched. Cultural listening required in every major deal. Also, we added your no after dinner rule company-wide. Families deserve sunsets. He grinned into the empty room. Good shoes, he murmured, thinking of doors and hinges and a small foot learning to plant and pivot. On the counter, a fresh sticky note waited. In Emma's careful hand, one new word, sautéed. She'd circled it, written beside it, the missing that feels like love. He pressed it to the fridge, pink square on stainless steel, and felt the rare luxury of a story that didn't close as much as keep opening, gently, like a hand. Tomorrow, there would be calls and crayons and probably eggs again. There would be questions with better answers. And there would be a child who listened to the world until it introduced itself properly, one culture at a time, one person at a time, one soft bell at a time.